Next is a report from the Youth Ministry Task Force. The chair recognizes the co-chair, Joe LeBoeuf and Brandon Tubbs.
How we doing, everybody? Brandon Tubbs, one of those rare creatures known as a ginger that I am told is expected to be extinct sometime soon. I don't believe it. I see too many of us. Middle-aged, all that jazz. About this time a year ago, this body was told that we'd be developing a youth ministry task force with Dr. Stinson's direction and everything else, and that we'd be talking and meeting with all the folks doing the thing. So here's the way I want to go about this. Raise your hand if your church has 3 teenagers. One's 5th grade, one's 10th grade, and one somewhere in between. Raise your hand if someone in your congregation has at least a family of 5, and that represents the entirety of the youth group. Raise your hand if your church has what resembles what you would call a youth group from your day and age, where not everybody's related. And you're actually able to gather and share about things that people haven't heard about because they're not in the same home. Right? What we've discovered over the past year is that there are a variety of needs, that while we have congregations stabilizing and growing, and it's a beautiful, blessed thing, that there are congregations who are struggling to figure out a way to reconnect with a teenager today as opposed to 25 years ago, because it's a world different. I remember not 5 years ago where I could gather with a group of teenagers and ask them, how is your soul? How are things going? And they would be curious, and they want to know what the youth dude had to say, or who he may be able to connect them with, or who she may be able to connect them with. YouTube Shorts, TikTok, and all that other stuff has been the growing trend to where teenagers are going for their source of authority and figures in their lives. It's not horrible, but it ain't the best. So what we're trying to do is figure out a way that we can help come alongside folks in the trenches who have been putting their nose to the grindstone and hands to the plow for 3 months or 30 years or somewhere in between, and help them say that there are people who are here to rally around and support you as you try to love, serve, and shepherd these folks with whom you are entrusted. Because we know that the hand of God is at work in every one of their lives, and that there's a calling of some form or fashion upon each of their lives. And all we have to do is help them discover the fingerprint of God upon their lives. And when we do that, it is good, and it is blessed, and it is right. So, I want you to think about who invited you to church, the youth group, the mission trip, whatever it was. I bet, depending on how far back it might have been, you might be able to remember how the van smelled. Right? You might be able to picture the pew that did not have a cushion and how hard it slept for that week of camp or the mission trip. Some of you will remember the rhythmic and flow and fellowship of junior high retreat, high school retreat, happening weekend of the cross, et cetera, like they were bread and butter, tried and true, in your face every year after year. Something happened a few years ago and busted all that up. And something just a little while ago busted things up a whole lot more. So we and many of the colleagues and counterparts that we've been talking with through Zoom and other opportunities are trying our level best to help shore up the needs and opportunities that the local church, the kids, the opportunity, the youth all have in common, so that we can help them see where God is at work, and more importantly, that there's a church that loves them and supports them and welcomes them. Because I suspect as we think through our memory banks, we'll also remember some lady who slipped us a $20 bill at graduation. Not because you had to, but because you wanted to. One other little anecdote of memory bank stuff. We're told We can debate it. We're told that regular church attendance is once out of every 6 Sundays or so. Some of y'all probably remember when someone came knocking on your door when you missed 2 Sundays in a row and didn't have a reason for it in advance. And at the very least, Aunt May called you up and say, "Sugar, is everything all right? We sure have missed you." So, much has changed, but much remains the same. God is at work in our lives. God calls us to serve and love and lead and welcome people one and all, whether they're freckle-faced and pink-eyed or scrawny or anything of that nature, that there are people who love them and welcome them and want to point them to Christ. So, throughout all these conversations, we've heard about the need for professional development opportunities, for community development opportunities, for fellowship with the youth and for the folks leading the youth. Because there are folks that have been in trenches for months and years, and some are struggling to find their way in the midst of sea change that's taken our time here in the past few years. So that's kind of my 2 cents. Joe's going to say a bit more specific.
Thanks, Brandon. Joseph LeBoeuf, white male, he, him, his pronouns. So the work this past year with the task force has been long, extensive, of different natures. And so Brandon already alluded to, things are different than how they have been. And so the task force has really put a lot of time, effort, and energy into assessing where is the new normal. Out with the old normal and in with the new normal, and what does that look like, and what is a different strategy for today? And one of the things that we realized is that the eventual goal is hopefully to have one dedicated point person at the conference, perhaps, to handle youth ministry. But with a lot of consideration and discussion and time, they have discerned that time is not now. It did not happen without serious consideration. Rather, the task force is going to take this next year to develop a clear picture of what exactly it is that our annual conference needs for youth ministry. We want to avoid falling back into that old normal and what that role entailed in the past of simply coordinating events and things of that nature, but what could it look like today in our time? With all that being said, there's still many hiccups that we have experienced through this process. We're happy to lead by committee, but we've experienced the struggles of the old saying, if everyone owns it, then no one owns it, right? As we are all trying to work together, things slip through the cracks a little bit. The task force, I'm not sure if you know, if you were actually a part of that work, if you could raise your hand, I think that's a wonderful thing. Yes, there's a couple people in the room who've been a part of that work on conversations and things like that. The task force consists of a wide variety of people. There is full-time paid youth ministers. There's part-time paid youth ministers. There's volunteers that are just grateful to help because they have a love and passion for youth ministry, but they also have other jobs outside of. There's also clergy who have joined forces with us because they also care and love youth ministry, but they have their own churches to run. And so with all of that being said, we see both the two realities, one of which we have to assess what this can look like for the new normal and continue to assess. And also, there's this bridge of how do we get there between now and then. So the bishop and the cabinet and the strategic implementation team have extended to myself and Brandon Tubbs an interim youth ministry strategist role within the conference. So between now and next annual conference, when you have questions about youth ministry, you'll be able to reach out to myself and Brandon, and we will have dedicated time, effort, and energy to answer those questions. When between now and like last month, I've already had 5 pastors come up and say, I have kids but no youth ministry, where do I start? Right? You now have 2 dedicated people that you can email those questions and answer. And so also along with this work in the strategic implementation process, Brandon is going to continue leading the youth ministry task force. And at last annual conference, there was actually mention of a camping and retreat ministries task force that will be part of this. And so I will actually be sliding over to engage and lead and organize that task force. So if you have any connections to camping or retreat ministry, you'll be hearing a lot from me in this next season as we work alongside the extended cabinet to just assess what the future holds, to see and to learn and to grow. In this next year, we're going to be working to connect, equip, and support youth workers within our annual conference. Throughout the rest of the week, as you make your way over to the restroom, you'll see these 2 little iPad kiosks standing there. You might have already seen them and be like, what in the world is this about? That is where you can actually give us your information. We want to have accurate information for who is your youth point person at your churches, so that way as we are planning and equipping and resourcing, we can have a direct contact and a direct line. There's even a QR code. You can scan it, go to dinner and do it at midnight if that is your workflow. At any point in time, you can fill out that form and just let us know, so that way we can stay connected and equipped as we go throughout this process. So in short, this next season is going to teach us more about what the needs of youth ministry are as we continue to work alongside the task force help. The theme of annual conference this year is joy, and I hope that in this next year we're going to continue to have joy, have hope for the near future, and excitement for all of the many discoveries we're going to have along the way. And all God's people said, amen.
Let's all say there's joy in the house. There's joy in the house. Amen. Thank you, Brandon and Joe. Hold on. Are there any questions regarding their report?